Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast with Ron and Kristen, where leadership meets entertainment. This podcast features stories with names and certain aspects that have been changed to keep submissions private. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast. Employee motivation, or lack thereof, doesn't get the attention it deserves. And only 15% of workers polled worldwide reported feeling engaged in their work. Neglecting this topic can hurt the workforce, as low engagement is directly linked to attrition. In this episode, we ask the question, are you having trouble staying motivated? Ron and I have a lot to say on this topic. And speaking of motivation, Ron, why don't you share our big announcement?
Kristen, isn't it perfect? We're doing a podcast on motivation.
It is.
And our Forward High Performance Planner is up on Amazon. So we are so excited about this project. For years, I always complained about planners. They either had too many things to fill in, not enough space to write your appointments and all that. So Kristen and I have really worked hard on this. We struck a balance. It's got all your federal holidays. It's got a weekly prep with a sample to go by, but it covers this week's absolutes, things that you got to get done. You get a personal quote from Kristen or I. Yes, we don't think we're Winston Churchill, but we knew you could Google those quotes, so we wanted to do one personally to you. So we alternate that at the beginning of each week. We've got some self-maintenance where you've got your fitness goals, wellness, nutrition, brain food, which is training or whatever you're taking in. Then we got team investment, team goals, who needs me? And that one is vital. Yeah. Someone always needs you. And then we got postscript. We went back to an old term, nostalgic, another place to take notes. And then each day we put a personal challenge and then a pro tip that kind of puts legs on the challenge to help you reach that challenge. We got today's top 3. We've got, as I said, the pro tip. Then we've got a high performance morning. It's got all your times. And we go up to 7 p.m. It's got a high performance afternoon, space to plan and reflect. And then at the bottom, it's got an end of day review. And I love this. It's got who rocked today. Someone on your team, maybe someone at home. They really rocked and you want to recognize them. Then we've got write something that encouraged you or encourages you, because Chris and I tell people all the time, if you're in the blues, and I'm not talking about a serious depression, a lot of times just thinking about something that encourages you helps your morale.
Right.
And then my performance today, and we got some of the smiley face, blank face, and a frown, but it is great to do some self-inflection every day, and we can always be getting better. So there's a lot of extras there. Now, this is in the form of a book for our listeners, and there's a hardback and a paperback version, but we are so excited about this. I really believe, we talk about leadership, but those people that write things down, they are more prone to reach that goal. And I think this will be a great source. I think it's a great Christmas gift. It's a way to tell someone you care about them. I think it's just so cool. So we are very excited. Thoughts, Kristen?
Yeah, and the other thing is it's aesthetically pleasing. I know that's something that really drives me. I will drink more water if I like the look of my water bottle. The list goes on. I'm not alone on that, by the way. A lot of people are this way. And the look of the planner, not even talking about the guts that Ron just went into, it's a very sexy planner. And so it's something that Ron and I have both shared with you, that we're not naturally organized people, but to Ron's amazing suggestions when interviewing, when you're talking about a weakness, which for both of us would be organization, talk about how you've put practices in place to help with that. And one thing is having a planner that really aids you. So I see that as an extension of you and something that's going to be a tool for your success.
Kristen, I couldn't agree more. And it's just exciting. We'll talk more about it, but it's just exciting when you jump into a goal, a plan. And this was just a dream just a little while ago, like the podcast, just like so many things that you've done. Kristen, before we begin, just quickly, since we're talking about motivation, I put a post in our Facebook groups that says, what motivates you the most? Dwight Decker, a friend of mine, he's in the Martial Arts Hall of Fame, by the way.
Awesome.
He says wanting to leave a legacy, and Dwight, if you're listening, you certainly do. Jeffrey Horn said, my family. Susie Hess said, church.
Yes.
Kit Bell Lemon, a friend of mine, was a federal executive. She said, depends on what it is. I probably needed to word my question better. Says at work, recognition for a job well done. And I think a lot of people share that sentiment.
Yes.
Donna Korn says fear of failure, and that can be a driving force.
Yes.
Pilar Soto, the family, God, serve others without expecting anything in return. And she is so right. That will make you a happy, well-rounded person.
Yes.
Donna Martin Howard says making a difference in the lives of others. And that means, producing some type of change. We got enough people tearing the world down. Let's build the world up.
Right.
And then Ellen Jackson, and this is just a factual point, doing what I know has to be done.
There
Every
has to be
day.
some of that. Absolutely.
It's being realistic. I love those.
Right. I do too. They're very, talk about well-rounded. We really, the feedback was from all angles.
Yeah.
And sometimes this isn't the most attractive thing to say, but we know it has to be done. Put your head down and go. And I know that's something that's helped me. I know, Ron, you were asking me to share how I even managed, especially last year. I have a hectic schedule. And last year, I would say, was the most hectic year of my life if you're just looking at a schedule on paper. And so I want to share how I was able to be successful with that, because sometimes I reflect on last year and I'm like, how did I do that? I don't know. But what's been critical for me, one, is doing what I enjoy and doing it for people or something I love or care deeply for. And that's myself included. You have to care for yourself as well. That is okay. So everyone needs purpose, some more than others. But let's look at, I'm going to break down last year. So like I said, the most hectic year of my life on paper, but I would argue it was the most fulfilling year of my life. So when you're thinking about a hectic schedule, basically what I was doing is I was focusing on the fact that I'm homeschooling my kids. That's one thing. I was still working for the bank. I took on being a campaign manager for a local politician, and I have my show. We hadn't rolled the podcast out yet, but we were in planning mode. So I have all these things on my plate, and a husband who at that time was working night shift, crazy schedule as law enforcement officer. But what I did was I was able to say, I'm doing all of this because I have that purpose. I'm homeschooling my kids because I love them and I want to play an active role in their lives. I take on this role of campaign manager because I love my country and it was worth it and a great experience. And I wanted to put my money where my mouth is and actually do something. And then I continued with my responsibilities at the bank, because that was something I was committed to. Continued with my responsibilities with my show. Not only am I committed to that, but I like putting a message out there every week. And so for me, when something that drives me is not only fulfilling promises that I've made, but also really reflecting on who I'm doing it for and what I'm doing it for. So there was a lot of put your head down and go last year. Yeah. I didn't take much time to gravel about different, like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I have to get up every single Saturday and go doorbelling, right? In the campaign world, you're knocking on doors, promoting your candidate. Yeah, I could have complained about that because that was my entire summer, but I didn't, because I had a responsibility. I had a mission, and you just put your head down and go. And once it's all over, you can pat yourself on the back, and it's a huge achievement. And anyone is capable of doing it, but you have to know why you're doing it.
That's so great, Kristen. And Ken Costa wrote this great book, Know Your Why. And
yes.
I think so many times we forget the goal. We get so focused on the step. In other words, we work on the mission that we forget the vision.
Right.
And I see people do that with exercise, diets, being organized, for example.
Yeah.
And Kristen, if people don't take anything else away, remember this: old habits die hard.
Oh, it's so true.
And the minute that you face conflict, you want to revert back to those old habits.
Right.
You know,
Something
Kristen,
I want to
go
add
ahead.
real quick, Ron. Sorry. I
No, go
think
ahead.
this is important. Episode 17, we did the entire episode about finding the one word, and that word is no, finding your no. And that was critical to me, especially last year, is being able to say no to things that didn't align with my mission. You have to do that for your sanity.
Yeah.
So I wanted to put that out there. Episode 17, if you want to go back and listen to that one.
Yeah, that's an important episode for sure.
Yeah.
And Kristen, I was going to talk about writing a book and
Yeah.
working. I was winding down my career in as a federal law enforcement academy director, but I've talked about that a lot. I've been on a ton of podcasts. I'm going to be on another one soon. So I wanted to mention one other thing that I started doing. As you know, Kristen, I am in my heaviest travel season ever since I started my company. So last week I did 6 presentations, and 3 of those were new presentations, so I had a lot more pressure. But what I do, I've had friends want me to go out, and I had a buddy that didn't really understand this, but I said, I'm in training. And he said, what are you training for? I said, I'm training to go do training, and I want to be at my peak performance.
Right.
And they chuckled a little bit, but I remember when I used to compete in the martial arts, we would really lock in, and you change the type of workout you do. Like, we would practice sparring a lot more, and we would practice the point fighting that you're going to be doing. So what I've learned to do, and we're going to talk about the steps, because listen, Kristen knows this. I had a death in the family, a lot going on, and I postponed recording this podcast. Kristen and I, any leader, anyone listening, sometimes life really throws you some challenges.
Right.
And those are the times that, again, I always tell everyone it's okay to get low, just don't get below the surface. I want to say that one more time. It's okay to get
Right.
low, don't get below the surface. If you get below the surface, you're psychologically burying yourself. And that's part of what I help people manage, even in executive coaching. But whatever you're doing, sometimes it really helps you to just put it as a very high goal, not high as in unattainable, but high in the priority list. This is very important to me. And that's exactly what I wanted to deliver. I believe that I did, but sometimes we got to go in that training mode, that mindset. I got to make it happen, like you said.
Yeah, and I think what you were talking about is really a strong leader. Sometimes we have to know, as leaders, and even someone striving to be in leadership, you need to know when you're not at your peak. So I've had mornings as a bank manager where every morning I was supposed to lead a motivational moment or a morning meeting. And let's say it didn't happen very often, but there were times where I was just not in it mentally, and I was not in a rah, let's get this done mode. That's when I would lean on my assistant manager or my banker or someone else on my team. And I'd be very honest. Look, I'm not there 100% today. I'm working through some stuff. I'm going to ask you to lead this. And ultimately, by doing that and realizing that, you're going to have a stronger message, and it's going to set the positive tone that you need versus forcing yourself to do something that you just are going to be struggling with.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely great. Now, I love that because you're using someone you trust, and you could tell them, I'm not feeling, myself today. I had so many situations as academy director, there was no delegation. There were certain things, I flew to Washington, D.C. to make a presentation. No one else could do it. And in those moments, we got to have that self-efficacy. And I wanted to cover 2 words that we hear sometimes, and many times we don't even know the difference. But that efficacy and resilience is something that as you develop, now some people just have it naturally, but the efficacy is the power to reach a goal or to get that end result. In other words, people who have strong efficacy, man, They're looking at the prize. I always
Right.
talk about personality types, Kristen, and it's really funny. I talk about driven people, and I talk about the different ones, but another one is the analytical people, and I always tell them, if you're driven, if you want to go to the moon, you get a driven person, but if you want to
Yeah.
get back home, you better get that analytical. You might be stuck
That's
on the
so
moon.
true.
And it's really true. They don't care about getting back home. You told them to go to the moon.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Oh, yeah.
those people, that's strong self-efficacy. Resilience is how fast you bounce back. And no matter what stage of life you're in, there's always going to be challenges. And again, it's okay to get low, just don't go below the surface. And people who are
Right.
resilient, even if they get knocked off the horse, they're going to get back up and they're going to
Yeah.
keep going. So those are two traits that we all need to work on. Keep your eye on the prize.
Right.
And if you do get knocked down, instead of going back to those old habits and going in a rut for a month, you jump back to your new habits and get going again. And if you can do that,
Right.
you'll be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have some very specific ways to stay motivated that we're going to share. And not only to stay motivated, but ignite your inner drive. But first, I want to touch on something that is important. And when we were doing research on motivation, or really lack thereof in the workforce, especially right now, and I can break that down a little further, but this is something from a physicality standpoint. So if you wake up and you are breaking your fast with carbohydrates or sugar, pretty much the same thing there, you will likely end up with some form of brain fog. So when you are working on something that is going to require focus, you need to be mindful of this and do your best to stay away from these carby breakfasts or whatever time of day it is. This is just scientific. You can look it up. Stay away from the sugar, stay away from the carbs if you want the ability to focus. That absolutely plays a role in what is called a lack of motivation, which can be also seen as laziness, but it can be because I'm sure we've all felt this before, where you just stare at your book or you stare at your screen. That is a form of brain fog, and a lot of times that is because of what's been consumed. Another factor could be ADHD. Sometimes people that have a hyperactive mind, it's not always the person bouncing off the walls physically. Your mind can be moving at 500 miles per hour. A little factoid in here, a lot of CEOs and executives have a form of ADHD.
Is that a
And
chicken? Sorry. Go ahead, Kristen.
Exactly. There you go, Ron. There you go. He's like C-suite. Yep. It helps you when you're in these high level positions because you can focus on so many things at the same time. But a lot of these people, they have a team under them to help rein them back in. So don't forget about the factors of diet and also the fact that you could have ADHD. Sugar and carbohydrates are not good for someone who has a hyperactive mind. So also good to think about that. Let me share number one with you. You want to define your purpose. Take time to reflect on your ultimate goals and align your daily actions with your larger purpose. Knowing your why will keep you focused and determined.
Yeah, that's great. Number two, because we've spent a lot of time with the prelims here.
Yeah.
You want to set SMART goals, and you want to set it up in specific, measurable aspects, because a lot of times, like, you don't on day one say, I'm going to start exercising. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do a marathon. Now, some people have that personality, but you're better off to say, I'm going to run a mile. I'm going to start with a half mile, whatever that is, or being organized.
Right.
And the reason you and I, and again, this is not an infomercial for our planner, but I love rating yourself, because I
Right.
know if I got disorganized and I bounce back into old habits, then I got to realign and get ready for that goal. So make your goal attainable.
Absolutely. Something else that's really important, surround yourself with positivity. And that is such an important aspect of remaining successful. I used to hang a sign in my branch that said, you are responsible for the energy you bring into this space. Also, something else I'm known to say, you have to cut out negativity like the cancer it is. Surround yourself with uplifting influences, engage with people who share your ambitions, and provide support and encouragement. Avoid negativity like the plague.
I love that. And Kristen, I want to add a little bit to that one. I talk a lot about your thoughts, your words, and your actions. And think about your words many times. I can remember when my daughters were young, I never said we have to go to church. I would say we get to go to church.
Yes.
Imagine if we took that attitude, I have to work tonight. How many times have you heard that? I have to work in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine if we said, I get to work in the morning.
Right.
But seriously, society is designed a lot of times in a negative way. Why do you think they call it an alarm clock? Why don't they call it an opportunity clock?
I like
Kristen,
it.
there's our next idea.
I know. I was just going to say, Ron's onto something here.
I finished
clock.
the planner.
He's going to have an opportunity app.
No, but think about that.
It's true, though.
You really have to guard that thought life. And trust me, you can do that partially with your words, and then your actions always follow your thoughts and words.
Right.
So
absolutely.
Anyway, that was free.
That was free. Hey.
This is tough, and I've been through this before, but you need to learn to embrace failure as growth, and that's part of that resiliency that I talked about, because how many times, think about it, if you're listening, that you failed, but it may have taken a little time, but boom, something better came along.
Right.
And you learned. I had someone who interviewed for a job, they didn't get it, but I loved this attitude. They said, I learned so much. I learned about the company. I learned my weaknesses in the interview. And I thought, man, that's resiliency right there in action. So embrace failure as growth.
Yeah, that's a big one right there. And you're right. It is tough for a lot of people to wrap their minds around. Practice self-care. Taking care of your physical and mental well-being is crucial for motivation. Make time for exercise, meditation, and healthy habits like sleep. I'm a big proponent for sleep. I've always been a night owl. This is a recent change for me. And so I would stay up till midnight almost every night. And my husband recently switched from the night shift to the day shift. So he's up at 5 a.m. In the beginning, it was a tough transition because I was used to being able to lay in bed and watch my shows that he can't stand because he wasn't home. So now that he's home and going to bed at 10 p.m., I had the choice of either going downstairs and staying up as late as I wanted, watching whatever I wanted without any gripes from him, or changing around my habits and going to bed at 10 p.m. And I'll tell you what, like I said, I started out by staying up. There were a few negatives to that. One, I'm staying up unnecessarily late. And the other was the kitchen's right there. So I found myself snacking after 10 p.m. when I shouldn't be, unnecessary snacking. So I started forcing myself just to go to bed when he did at 10 p.m. And now I find that not only do I listen to my body when my eyes burn, I'm going to bed. And I wake up in the morning and I have so much more energy and I'm in a positive mood. So it's really been a good thing because when you feel great, motivation flows naturally.
You know, Kristen, that's such a good point. And by the way, that's part of my struggle. I don't sleep as well as I should, but I have found if I am consistent, this is what I tell people if I'm coaching them, because I'm a night owl and a morning person. So because there's this,
that's called burning the candle at both ends.
It is.
Yeah.
It is so peaceful at night, though, and I agree with you. So you're better off to set that time to get up, which most people have to work anyway, but you set that time to work or to get up, and it becomes more consistent. But what I tell people, there's some people that works second shift jobs, they get home at 1 a.m. As I say, just whatever you set, be consistent.
Right.
But I do find when I get up early, I usually get more done by noon than any other time.
Yes.
I get tons of work done. So
yes.
All right. The next one we have is, remember, a motivation is a journey, not a destination. And you do, just to recap, you want to be kind to yourself. You want to seek inspiration, motivation. I do think podcasts. I do think TED Talks. There's a lot of things that you can do. But try to counterbalance all that negativity that gets spewed all the time. Try to counterbalance that with something positive. And Chris and I was thinking we did research in a lot of different ways, and we got 11 things, but I thought we might just pop these out quickly. They're a little more specific than the general things that we just discussed, and this may help someone because I do think everyone knows about goal setting. They know where they want to go, but it is those moments that you have. And I've been in a rut before, and it's not a fun place to be.
Right,
one day becomes
right.
2 days, and 2 days becomes a week, and all of those things. So I just hope that people listening to this podcast will begin to put the parameter in place. So like I said, if you do fall, you just don't get too low and you get back on track. Because, man, I used to beat myself up. I'm a workout enthusiast. A lot of times when I was teaching defensive tactics, I know it sounds like a workout, but you're really walking around a lot of it. You demonstrate some, but I didn't feel like working out. I was too tired. And then I would feel guilty. I would get down on myself, and it's just that
it's a vicious cycle.
It really is.
So, I have to say, Ron, earlier you mentioned podcasts, and like you listen to podcasts, and that is something I do a lot too. I recently bought. You and I'm just going to put this out there. We share that we both like to, when we are showering separately, put that out there too. We both like to listen to podcasts. And I recently came across a waterproof shower speaker. So I literally hang this speaker, and it's Bluetooth, in my shower, and I listen to podcasts, health podcasts generally, or hours. I listen to hours and critique myself, but during the shower. So you know what? I think there's never a wrong time or place to consume knowledge.
Kristen, if you hadn't gotten my Christmas gift yet, because I'm going to send you a planner.
Yes. All right, you're going to send me a planner? Excellent. Well, I'm going to send you a shower speaker.
Perfect. Oh, I got to say this. Kristen and I had just met, and we'd talked about doing a podcast, so I decided to send her a copy of my book. Should I tell this, Kristen?
Yeah.
We're far enough along.
Yes, that is hysterical, yes.
So it was an envelope that I'd never seen before. I'm sorry, I'm laughing, but it was a different envelope I got from the post office.
Like different layout.
Basically, 2 weeks passed. Kristen's never got my book. I go to my post office box. I have this package wrapped. I look, and it looked just like my handwriting. So I mailed my book to myself, not Kristen.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
And I think I had your address up in the corner or something.
Yeah.
It was hilarious. I
will give this, it was a funky layout on the envelope, so I'm not quite sure.
I thought to myself, does she really want to do a podcast with a guy that mails a book to himself? So I started to say, I'll send you a planner, but I'll probably get it in the mail.
Yeah. You'll just send it to yourself. Hey. All right. Speaking of planners, and we were talking about getting organized, and Ron just shared, we're going to share 11 very specific things you can do. 1, put your goal on your calendar. We've both shared we're not naturally organized. We live by calendars. So that's very important to stay organized and on top of your goals.
Kristen, when I was a probation officer especially, there was a slogan, if you didn't write it down, it didn't happen. Now, I know there's recordings and different things, but we live by that. That was the mantra.
Yeah, seriously.
Number 2, make working toward your goal a habit. Your habits define you. You are what you do. So as you set the goal, think about attainable ways you're going to reach that goal and build habits. Of course, the internet says it takes 23 days to build a new habit. That varies with the individual, so don't get stuck on that. Yeah. But it does take time. That's what you have to know. It takes time to build new habits. Old habits don't like to go away. They die hard.
And plan for imperfection. You are going to fail. Try to see it as a positive. I used to tell when I would have a new leader, I would say, I am going to make mistakes every now and again, but I will never repeat the same mistake. So that's true, pretty much true. I mean, if you can see it that way, you will. It's a nice way to take it easy on yourself, but also to learn from it. Don't beat yourself up.
It is. And Kristen, this may sound conflicting, but set small goals to build momentum.
Right.
What that means is if your goal, and I do use exercise a lot just because it's easy to give analogies, but if your goal is to start running a mile a day, do 10 push-ups when you wake up in the morning, even if it's just 10, because see, you've won. You've benefited yourself by finishing a small goal, and that helps you build those habits toward the larger goal.
Right, exactly. I think, yeah, that goes for weight loss too. It's not like we're not going to say, I'm going to lose 50 pounds. How about you say in the next month, I'm going to lose 5.
That's
Achieve that goal and then just keep going with it. So track your progress. Talking about weight loss, you have to establish a measuring plate. So if you might be familiar with that term, but if you don't track, it's like trying to lose weight or inches, but not having a scale or a measuring tape. You don't know where you've started and where you've gone with it. You have to have a measuring plate.
That's right. And Kristen, this is big. I wrote about this in my book. Most people don't know what a win is. You have to be a winner, you have to have wins. And so reward yourself with little wins, the same as big ones. So if you do those 10 push-ups, encourage yourself or whatever it is. But you have to do little celebrations. And it makes you feel good. It helps your efficacy, and it's going to help you all the way around. So do some small things and reward yourself for those small things. Like I just ate a half a bag of chips last night, so I'm going to celebrate.
I lost 5 pounds, so I went and ate a giant thing of French fries. Yeah, I only gained
4.5 back, so hoorah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so embrace positive peer pressure. And I'll tell a little story to show you what that means. So basically, the way I learned to swim was from peer pressure. I remember I was 5 years old. We were at Disneyland. I was in the pool at the hotel. I had water wings on, those little floaties on your arms. And I remember, I can still see it. This girl was like, "You can't swim." And I was like, "I can swim." I ripped my water wings off and swam across the pool. And my parents were like, "What?" And that's because for me and a lot of people, you're motivated by your peers. You want to be competitive with them, or at least on an equal playing field. So I say there is positive peer pressure, and that example is one of them.
Kristen, that's so interesting, your illustration about swimming in the pool. I was going to tell you this when we talked offline, but in all my research, no one mentioned like pride, fear of failure, and those things. Now, some of our Facebook group did, but I absolutely determined in martial arts, and it's probably because I got picked on so much, but I determined no one was going to beat me. And I tell a funny story about this guy that looked like Howdy Doody. And I went to this tournament. Guys from my college came, and we had started this new fighting technique. Long story, it sounds like I'm making excuses, but Howdy Doody beat me. Let's put it that way. And I remember, oh my God. And those guys at first, I rode with them, which was a huge mistake. We went maybe a couple miles, and everything was quiet. I was in the back seat sulking, and then somebody goes like, "Hey, it's Howdy Doody time." And oh my God, I wanted to beat them up. But here's my point. There is healthy pride where you want to present yourself in a good way, so you're going to take the steps to do that. If you're grossly overweight, then maybe you want to lose weight because you've got pride in your work, you've got pride in the way you look, and you set that as a goal. It's okay to use healthy pride. It's okay when I loved when we had one feedback that says, "I do what has to be done." It's okay. You have to do what has to be done, and those are motivating factors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. The next one, we're almost finished. Practice gratitude. So many times I just say, "Thank you, God, for another day." And take a deep breath. Be thankful for what you have. There's always people that have a lot less than you.
Right.
And that also keeps you from getting too low. But practice gratitude. Be thankful for people in your life. Be thankful for opportunities. And that will keep you strong and resilient.
Yeah, it will. Also, do something mood lifting. And the definition of that is going to vary person to person. For me, something mood lifting outside of the responsibilities I have in the home, I make a point to see non-family members, so friends, at least once a month. I go and hang out with a friend. I love movies. I try to go to a movie every couple of months. I love shopping a lot. I've really tried to work on that, but sometimes even grocery shopping will get that fix. And then if you need alone time, maybe you meet, sometimes I'm like, I just really could use some alone time. And then after a half hour, I'm like, okay, I'm good. So do what you got to do for yourself whatever is a mood lifter, and you have to evaluate that.
Kristen, when I talk about mindfulness training, I used to tell people, now it's only if you can do this, but when I would get stuck in traffic, nothing bothers me worse than traffic.
Yeah.
If I didn't have meetings, I would call in the office, and I'm sorry if it was an accident and I knew I'm going to sit there for an hour.
Yeah.
As soon as I could inch up to the next exit, I'm off. I would get a nice cup of coffee somewhere, sit, relax. I would have my laptop. And it just made me feel good knowing I conquered that. I changed the environment. I could not be in that environment. I was going to be stressed out. So I changed the environment.
That's really interesting. I like that. So it's really, you took control of something that would exactly otherwise really put you in the wrong direction.
There's so many
mentally.
psychological factors to that. But yes, I use that example in training, that we have to combat stress, and you're not combating if you're going with it.
Right.
So
that's a thinker. I like that. I'm going to have to think on that one.
Yeah.
What I can make changes in my life. So last one here. Remember your why. What's your purpose? Humans desire purpose, whether we realize it or not. And you think about, and this is especially for men when they've retired from a career or their second career. Men, when they don't have a purpose, this is women too, but I'm putting an emphasis on men because this is very common. It can cause depression, and men have had heart attacks after retiring. And a lot of it can be pointed back to this lack of purpose, which changes the lifestyle. When you don't have a reason to get up every morning, then you're maybe not eating as well, and you're not moving around and getting exercise. So you need to establish purpose and understand what drives you.
Kristen, when you and I first met, I realized we were both driven. We had similar personalities, but I do always have to have a goal. If you notice, I reached out and I was like, hey, let's do a planner. And, you loved it, and we took off. But you can expect another something coming, because I always keep things to keep me motivated. And, I'm gone the whole month of September, the rest of August, September. But I'm already thinking about October, November, if the training slows down a little bit, the projects that I've got going on. I live that way. And when I first retired from the government, it was a pandemic. And I'm telling you, Kristen, it was just freaky for me, because I was at home alone, and I would just sit on the couch like, is someone watching me? Am I supposed to do this? But I realized I was not happy. I wasn't sleeping well. So I really stepped up my game on building, forward operations and working on finalizing the book, all that stuff. Now, that's how I'm wired. But this is what I tell everyone. Get a PhD in you. Yes. How are you wired? Right. And I learned things about myself when I stepped out of that hustle and bustle that I did not know. From the best bedtime to what foods to reactions to toxic people. There were all kinds of things that I started learning. And the best advice I can give anyone is get a PhD in you. And then once you learn yourself, you got to set goals that are for you. It may be baking cookies. I don't minimize any goal. And I had someone one time that said, well, I'm a stay-at-home mom, and said it apologetically to me. This was just literally probably 3 weeks ago. I'm a stay-at-home mom, because everyone was talking about, what do you do? And I was like, so you got the highest calling of all of us. And I said, I think that's awesome. You're investing time in your children. And this person did say, I'm going to go back to work and all this. But I knew they were apologizing, because that's kind of how the culture. Be you, get a PhD in you, set smart goals, surround yourself with positivity as much as you can, guard that thought life. It's okay to get low. Don't get too low. Get back on the horse. We believe in you. We're doing this podcast for a reason. I promise my ego's not that big that I want to hear myself talk. I love to hear that people are being impacted. And that's what it's about. So please, if you were impacted by this, or you just want to pop a new goal out, DM or on Facebook or on Instagram, and you want to be held accountable, do it. Put it out there if that's what you know. I know me. So anyway, Kristen, I think this is a phenomenal topic.
I do too. And it really is an underserved topic. So underserved and drastically needed. When I was researching, it's amazing how little focus is on this topic. And especially from a company standpoint, attrition is expensive. When you have a revolving door of
That's right.
employees, it is so expensive. So even if you're looking at it from that one standpoint, you better get on top of what motivates and hone it.
Yeah. Hey, everyone, do not forget to order your Forward High Performance Planner. You can get paperback or hardcover, and I promise you this, Kristen and I did not price these like a comparable planner is like $8 or $9 more. I think ours is a lot better. Of course, I'm biased, but jump on there and order your planner. Talk to your company, talk to your C-suite, and tell them you found a planner that they need to order for everyone.
Right.
It's really going to help you, and I'm excited about it. I know what I'm going to be giving a lot of people for Christmas, that's for sure, if they don't order them beforehand.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. And like Ron said, we are doing this for the people, not for ourselves. So they are not priced for profit. They are priced to change lives.
We're not going to make any profit?
Well,
I just thought that was good to end on. All right, everybody, be the leader you're meant to be.
We'll see you next week.
The Dirty Side of Leadership podcast is brought to you by Forward Operations. If you'd like to book Ron or Kristen for speaking events, training, or executive coaching, visit forwardoperations.com. Be the leader you're meant to be.